He thinks I'm with the girls. He's literally just the wallet," my girlfriend wrote in her group chat while I was paying for the Cabo trip she took with her old friend. I didn't argue. I canceled our shared cards, moved my money out, and left one note on the counter. 2 weeks later, she brought him to my door and called me controlling until I read her group chat out loud, and he finally realized he was just another version of me. I'm Mark, 29, IT contractor. Decent income, nothing flashy. I've been with Jessica for 2 years. She moved into my apartment about 18 months ago, back when things felt like they were heading somewhere. The lease has always been in my name. When she moved in, her employment wasn't consistent enough for her to qualify as a co-tenant. She worked part-time at a boutique, irregular hours, income that came and went, and I told myself that was temporary. It wasn't. I pay $1,400 a month in rent. Jessica contributed nothing to it. Not rent, not utilities, not groceries with any consistency. I wasn't resentful, not at first. I told myself we were in a phase. Things would even out. The money requests started small: gas, a copay, I'm a little short this week, 100 here, 200 there. Then it became normal. Whenever I'd pause for even a second, she'd say the same thing, don't make it weird. So I didn't. I sent the money. What I thought I was, to her, was the reliable one. The one who showed up. When her phone got cut off between jobs, I added her to my plan. When the insurance on her car lapsed because she forgot, I sorted it out. I took some quiet pride in being steady. She used the word boring, sometimes half-joking, or what I thought was half-joking, and I told myself that boring just meant she knew I'd still be there in the morning. I thought that meant something to her. I'm not telling this story to make her sound like a monster from the start. She wasn't, or at least, she didn't seem like one. When we met, she was funny and a little chaotic, and she moved through a room like she already knew everyone in it. I'm quiet. I tend to stay in one place at parties and let things come to me. She was the opposite of that, and I liked the contrast. I thought we balanced each other out. Maybe we did, for a while. Or maybe I was just the stable part of the equation she needed to function, and I mistook that for something more mutual. She had this habit I noticed early and kept explaining away. At parties, when she'd introduce me to someone, she'd say, "This is Mark," and keep moving. Not my boyfriend, not anything else. Just "this is Mark," and she was already looking somewhere else. I told myself it was how she was: casual, quick, not big on labels. There's one more thing. She mentioned a name once, early on. Stefan. An old friend from college, she said, very casually, like it was nothing. She said it once and never again. I didn't ask about him. I don't know why I've never forgotten it. I just haven't. She told me about spring break over dinner. Not a conversation, an announcement. I'm going to Cabo with the girls. You're not invited. I asked if she meant just part of the week or the whole thing. The whole week, she said. I sat with that for a second, then asked, carefully, if maybe I could fly out separately, book my own room somewhere nearby, give her space, not be in the middle of everything. She looked at me like I'd said something embarrassing. It's a girl's trip, Mark. You'd kill the vibe. God, why do you always have to make everything about you? I didn't push back. I told myself I didn't want to be the guy who made things difficult. I told her to have fun. She said thanks, already looking at her phone. That same evening, the exact same night she'd told me I wasn't invited, a notification came through on my phone. A Cash App request. From Jessica, $340. The note said, "Hey babe, can you cover my flight? Just, call me satan eliacumentalol." I sent it. I remember sitting there after I hit confirm, and I didn't feel anything sharp about it. No resentment, not really. It just felt like what I was supposed to do. She needed something covered. I could cover it, so I did. That was how things worked. That was the arrangement. I didn't think of it as an arrangement at the time. I thought of it as being a partner. There's a difference, apparently, and I was the last one to learn it. The thing about a pattern is that you're usually inside it for a long time before you can see it as one. I started thinking, not long after she left, about the Venmo history. I opened the app, 60 days. Around $700 total. It felt like more when I saw it laid out like that. Each individual transaction had been small enough that none of it felt alarming in the moment. That's how it worked. $20 felt like nothing, $50 felt like nothing, $200 stung a little, but she's your girlfriend. And then you look up, and it's been $700 in 2 months, and you've never once mentioned it. I thought about the $500 she'd asked for around Thanksgiving. She said it was for a car repair, something with the brakes. she said. I gave her the money and didn't ask for documentation or anything. About a month later, a mutual friend mentioned offhand that she'd been at some concert around that same time. I never found out who she went with. I never asked. I moved it into a category I'd built in my head called things I don't need to make into a thing and left it there. I thought about a dinner with her friends a few months back. Someone had asked how Jessica was managing everything, and Jessica had said, laughing, like it was a bit, "Oh, you know, I've got a subscription service for that." Everyone at the table laughed. I laughed. I thought it was self-deprecating humor. I was the one being self-deprecating. And I kept coming back to Stefan. I still couldn't pin down exactly when she'd said his name, early on. Once, casual, old college friend. Nothing to ask about. On day 3 of her trip, she texted me from Cabo. "Hey, can you call my carrier? There's something weird with my data roaming, and I'd do it, but the hold times are insane, and you're just so much better at that stuff." I called. I sorted it out. I was on hold for 22 minutes. I texted her that it was fixed. She sent back a thumbs up, and "You're literally the best." I sat with that for a minute after she sent it. "You're literally the best." I'd been hearing that phrase in various forms for 18 months whenever I transferred money. Whenever I handled something she didn't want to deal with, whenever I was useful, I had accepted it as a form of affection. Sitting in my apartment, on hold with a carrier for a girlfriend who was in another country with someone whose name I'd been trying not to think about, the phrase landed a little differently. I saved the text. I'm not sure why. Some part of me was keeping receipts before I knew I needed to. Before she ever boarded the plane, she made sure she had a story ready. She told Becca, and through Becca, most of the people in their circle, that I'd been weird about the trip, that I'd made it a whole thing, that I had trouble with her having a life that didn't include me, and she was finally doing something just for herself, and I was struggling to handle it. Not angry, just fragile, controlling, the kind of guy who needs to be the center of everything. The morning of her flight, she posted an Instagram story. A photo of her boarding pass and a coffee, and the caption, "Finally breathing. Some people just can't handle you actually living your life." No names. That was the point. Vague enough to be about anything, pointed enough that everyone in her circle knew exactly what it was about. 2 days into the trip, Becca texted me. "Hey, just wanted to check in. She just needs space to breathe, you know? You know how she gets when she feels boxed in." I stared at that message for a while. Then I typed back, "Yeah, I think I'm starting to understand." I didn't explain what I meant. Becca replied with a thumbs up, and that was the end of it. I watched her stories the rest of that week. Sunsets, rooftop bars, group photos with everyone laughing, golden hour light. The kind of trip that looks identical to every other trip in every other set of photos. She tagged everyone in those posts. There was no me to tag, but the point wasn't about tags. The point was the image she was building, a woman finally breathing. A woman who'd been held back and was now free. She'd written the story before anything happened. She just needed me to play the part she'd assigned me long enough for it to stick. I hadn't decided yet whether I was going to let that happen, but I was starting to think about it. Tuesday night. I was at the kitchen sink finishing the dishes. The iPad was on the coffee table where she always left it. She'd left it there when she packed for the trip, and I hadn't moved it. I want to be clear about what happened, because it matters. I wasn't going through her things. I hadn't touched that iPad since she left. It wasn't something I'd thought about doing. She'd always had her devices, I'd always had mine, and I'd never once gone looking through anything that was hers. That wasn't how I was built, and honestly, I don't think it had crossed my mind because it hadn't needed to. I trusted her. The screen lit up on its own. A notification from the Cabo Bitches group chat appeared, and my name was right there in the preview, visible before I'd moved, before I'd done anything. I saw my name. I walked over. I picked it up. I read the thread from the beginning. It went back 3 weeks. The language she used for me in that chat, it wasn't angry, and it wasn't guilty. It was easy, comfortable, the kind of language that builds up when you've been saying the same things for a while. She called me the wallet like it was a nickname everyone already knew. She said I was sweet, but God, I was boring. She said he never asks questions, which is honestly why it still works, and someone had replied with a string of laughing emojis, and she'd replied, "Exactly lol." Another message from her, a few days earlier. "Don't worry, he'll cover it." A reference to something I hadn't known I'd agreed to cover. That word. Works. She wasn't describing a relationship. She was describing a system that was functioning correctly. I found the Stefan thread when I scrolled over to another open window in the same app. I wasn't hunting for it. The app was just open, multiple threads, and his name was there. His last message read, "Can't wait to see you. He thinks I'm with the girls lol." The timestamp said Friday, 9:14 p.m., day 1 of the trip. I sat down on the couch and didn't move for a while. I thought about the $500 for the car repair, the concert tickets, the subscription service joke at that dinner, the 22 minutes on hold with her carrier 3 days ago. I thought about 2 years of this is market parties and a name I'd been told exactly once and then never again. I was trying to figure out when the relationship I thought I was in had become the arrangement she'd apparently been running for most of it. I don't know that I found a clean answer. I just know that at some point, sitting on that couch, something I'd been carrying for a long time finished settling. When I got up, I took screenshots of everything, the group chat going back to the beginning, the Stefan thread. I emailed them to myself. Then, I opened my email and found the lease PDF from 18 months ago. My name on the signature line. Only my name. I opened Venmo. $700 over 60 days, documented in a list. I looked at all of it for a while. Then, I texted Daniel. He works adjacent to property law and not a practicing attorney, but he knows the landscape well enough to give me a straight answer. I texted him, if someone lives with me, isn't on the lease, and has never paid rent, what are their options if I need them to leave? He replied in about 20 minutes. Clear, direct, exactly what I needed to know. I read his message twice. Then I put my phone down and finished the dishes. I did not text Jessica that night. I didn't draft anything, didn't start and delete. I went to bed. Wednesday morning, I called a professional moving company. I explained the situation straightforwardly, all her belongings, handled carefully, with a full itemized record of everything moved. I called the building manager and confirmed what Daniel had told me. She was not on the lease, had established no tenancy rights, and her removal from the apartment was legally clean. The building manager was matter-of-fact about it. I appreciated that. That afternoon, I went into the phone carrier account and removed her line. I went into the car insurance portal and removed her vehicle from my policy. I went into Spotify and removed her from the family plan. I did each one separately, like crossing items off a list, which is exactly what it was. On Thursday evening, I sent her one text. Your things are at Sarah's. Locks change Friday. That was it. No explanation. No preview of what I'd found. No request for the $700 back. I didn't want a conversation. There was nothing left to talk about. I wanted an outcome. She called 3 times Thursday night. I let all 3 go to voicemail. I listened to the messages the next morning after I'd already been to the building manager and had the new keys cut. I thought about the subscription service comment while I was removing her from the Spotify plan. She'd said it months ago at that dinner, laughing, like it was a throwaway bit. Everyone at the table had laughed. I'd laughed too. I thought she was being self-deprecating about relying on me. I understood it differently now. She hadn't been describing herself. She'd been describing me, the service. Available. Automated. Never cancels unless you cancel it first. I canceled it. She'd been subsidizing her entire life in the city on someone she privately called a wallet. That arrangement was over. She landed on Sunday afternoon. I know this because she posted a story from baggage claim sunglasses, a selfie, the caption back to reality. I saw it. I didn't respond. Her Lyft dropped her off around 7. I know this because my phone rang at 7:03. I let it ring once. Then I picked up. Hey, I said. There was a short silence. Then her voice, higher than usual, the pitch people hit when they're trying to land somewhere between confused and outraged. Mark. What the hell is going on? My key doesn't work. Your things are at Sarah's, I said. Take care of yourself. She kept talking louder, faster, the way someone talks when the floor has shifted and they're trying to get it back under them. I listened for about a minute. I didn't say much. Then I said I had to go, and I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. About 40 minutes later, I heard voices outside my door. I looked through the peephole. Jessica was in the hallway. She wasn't alone. She'd brought someone with her, a guy I'd seen in a couple of her Cabo stories, still in what looked like vacation clothes, light tan, arms crossed, the posture of someone who's there to add weight to someone else's side. I opened the door. Jessica started immediately. Mark, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you can't just. I looked at the guy. He told me his name was Dave. I nodded. I looked back at Jessica. I found the group chat, I said. She stopped. A beat short, but real. Then she came back louder. What group chat? Mark, What are you even talking about? I took my phone out of my pocket. I opened the screenshots. I found the line I wanted. I read it out loud, slowly, once. He thinks I'm with the girls. Lol. I watched her face. Dave looked at Jessica. Not at me. At her. The kind of look that isn't angry yet, just recalibrating. Trying to figure out if he'd been handed a version of something that wasn't quite the whole thing. Jessica didn't look at Dave. She was looking somewhere between me and the floor. I said, "You're not on the lease. Your things are at Sarah's. This is the last conversation we're having." I went back inside and closed the door. I could still hear them out there, her voice, then his, lower, then hers again. At some point she spoke louder, directed at the door. "You're so boring, Mark. I cannot believe you." I stopped listening. I filled the kettle. I put it on. I want to be honest. I didn't feel vindicated, exactly. I didn't feel like I'd won something. I felt the way you feel after you've done something you should have done a while ago, a little tired, and also lighter than you expected. The water boiled. I made tea. I sat down. The thing about Dave. She'd brought him specifically. She'd wanted a witness. She'd wanted someone standing there when she confronted me about being controlling and unreasonable and unable to handle her having a life. She'd wanted the whole moment documented in his memory so she could use it later. She'd built her entire week on that story, the Instagram, the Becca text, whatever she'd been telling people at the pool in Cabo. She'd done all of that work to make sure that when she got home and the situation was what it was, she had backup. She had a person who would stand next to her and make the case that I was the problem. He came to see one story. He heard a different one. He was going to walk away with something she hadn't planned on giving him. She'd called me boring from the parking lot. That word she'd been holding like a verdict for 2 years, maybe longer. The last thing she could find to say, at the end of all of it, on the other side of a locked door, was that word. I drank my tea. Without the apartment, Jessica moved back to her parents' house. They're 2 states away. From what I heard, she was out of the city within a week. The car insurance situation surfaced a little later. She apparently hadn't noticed when the policy lapsed or noticed and didn't deal with it. She got a parking ticket at some point and ignored it. Eventually, the registration got flagged and the car was impounded. She didn't have the money to get it out. About 10 days after the night on the porch, someone sent me a screenshot of something she'd posted on Instagram. The caption said, "Some people show their true colors when you finally start living for yourself." Vague, pointed, same move as before. She was still trying to write the story. Still trusting her audience to fill in the details she wanted them to fill in. Except this time, someone who had actually been on that trip, not Becca, someone else, someone who had apparently been in that group chat, left a comment under the post. It said, "Didn't you literally call him your wallet lol?" The comment stayed up for about 4 hours before she deleted it. By then a lot of people had seen it. Some people took screenshots. Those screenshots got around. I didn't post anything. I didn't comment on anything. I didn't say a word to anyone. Her own people said it for her. About 3 months later, a mutual friend mentioned in passing that Jessica had taken a job at her parents' restaurant back home. Long shifts. On her feet. A long way from the boutique part-time schedule, she'd been running in the city on someone else's money. I didn't say anything about that. 6 months after the night on the porch, I was at Home Depot with my girlfriend. We'd been together about 4 months by then. She's the kind of person who actually asks what you think, not as a way of checking whether you'll agree with her, just because she wants to know. We were in the paint aisle. She held up 2 swatches. "What color do you like?" "Just like that." I said green. She said green it is and put the other one back. I was looking at the display when I saw Jessica 2 rows over. Work clothes, a little tired. She saw me at the same time I saw her. There was a moment where either of us could have looked away. She didn't. I didn't. I gave her a small, honest smile, the kind you give someone you used to know. Then, I turned back to the paint. My girlfriend was holding up a slightly darker green. I pointed to it. She put it in the cart, and we moved on. She'd called me boring like it was a verdict. Turns out it was just a preference. And not everyone shared it.